Welcome one and all to episode 35 of Titan Teatime. I'm Petter, and this is James.
Hi.
And today we're talking about Season 1 of the Attack on Titan anime. The first time that we're actually bringing the anime, I should say, into the focus of our podcast. So I'm pretty excited about this. I had a lot of fun rewatching this season today, yesterday and today for me. But a little bit of a clarification for what this episode is going to be like. We are actually going to keep this episode spoiler-free as far as the rest of the story goes, so we're not going to be talking about anything past Season 1 of the anime. However, we are going to be comparing the anime to the manga in the aspects where we can, but that said, we're not going to be talking about anything story-related that's coming after Season 1 of the anime. So, so basically, this episode is a little bit more open to anime onlys for sure, and to newcomers to the series who are only a little bit into it and stuff like that. So, going a little bit of a different approach with this episode compared to our usual stuff.
Absolutely.
And since I know this season was both of ours introduction to Attack on Titan, I figured we'd start off by perhaps sharing our initial experiences, at least if we can remember them. And I'll go first since, at least I know I remember mine very vividly. Well, I'll say first, my expectations for Attack on Titan was nothing like, what it actually was. I thought it was going to be some science fiction show about, Saturn's moon that's called Titan, and, people were going to attack that moon or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but yeah, because I hadn't seen any images or anything. I hadn't seen any synopsises or anything like that. I had just heard the title of the show, and so that's where my mind went. But like a lot of people, I was blown away by that first episode, of course. And it obviously gave me a completely new idea of what the show was going to be like. And I still remember so clearly that after I had just finished that first episode, a big part of me really wanted to just continue on because, I was into it by that point. I really wanted to see what happened next. But I physically couldn't. I was out of breath and overwhelmed by everything I had just witnessed. So I remember I stood up from my chair by the computer where I had watched the episode, and I sat down on the edge of my bed, just kind of hunched over with my head between my knees, just trying to just regain myself and just catch my breath. It was such an intense moment, kind of, and it was definitely the first time in my life that a piece of media had affected me in that kind of a way. So it's something I'll probably never forget, and just a really powerful memory for me. But do you remember sort of your first experience with Attack on Titan?
So I remember where I watched it. I was in a college apartment just for the summer. I was taking some summer classes, and I had just got back from Japan. Actually, no, it wasn't just back. It was a year or two from living in Japan, and I was kind of looking for a way to, I don't know, have Japanese in my life because I was worried about forgetting Japanese and whatnot. And obviously, there's a lot of ways you can try to get Japanese, especially now. Although back when I watched it, maybe it wasn't as accessible as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But the one way I decided that would be entertaining and I had just a little bit of a curiosity for was anime. So I looked around for what are the best anime, and I remember there being 3 that I ended up watching that made me love the medium. It was Death Note, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
I don't remember in what order.
Right.
But I think it was Death Note first, which I watched completely on YouTube. Just pirated,
I remember.
by the way.
I think you talked about this on our discussion with the You Hear Big Girls, if I am not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
And then I think it was via Netflix Attack on Titan.
Oh yeah.
And that was so obviously Death Note. I really liked that, and it made me want to keep looking for more. Then Attack on Titan happens, and oh gosh, I was completely captivated.
Same director.
Exactly. by the animation, the characters, the mystery. Oh, the mystery! It's not a mystery, like, I don't think it's in that genre, but just the plot points that were brought up. It grabbed my attention so well that I just fell in love. And yeah, so I don't have like a vivid memory of how I felt during the first episode, but I do remember being in my room, just kind of hyped, excited, but antsy, butterflies in my stomach about the ending.
Yeah.
Just where does it go from here? What? There's a Titan in the wall. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because supposedly Wit didn't never had any intentions to actually do any other seasons besides the first season.
that's what I hear.
Right. And so it's so interesting to me that even though that supposedly was their intention, they still left all of these plot threads hanging, like the key to the basement and Annie and the crystal and several other things. And obviously I'm grateful that they did that, that they did leave the door open for a potential second season, even though some of it was kind of like in the ending there they kind of did some things different from the manga, but it didn't ruin anything, luckily.
Right. Now go read the manga, kids.
Yeah. The manga, in my opinion, is a 10 out of 10. The anime is a 9 out of 10 overall. That's just my opinion on that. So I love both, but I do think the manga is the best way to experience Attack on Titan. Anyway, we're gonna kind of go through step by step a little bit about the anime here. We're gonna start by talking about the visuals of it, and that includes basically everything you see: the art style, the character designs, the animation, of course, stuff like that. Then we're going to be talking about the audio, everything you hear, so voice work and sound effects and music, of course. And at the end is the changes that are different from the manga. So let's just delve into the visuals first then. One thing I really remember loving, and I still love it, but I think it made a big impact on me early on, on my first watch, is the line work, like the thick line work for the characters, and especially like the outlines. Yeah. Those thick outlines look like I really like the aesthetic of that. It kind of pays homage in a way to the fact that that it's all drawn, or it comes from the manga medium originally and stuff like that. Like it because it looks more kind of drawn than it otherwise would, I think. And I just really like that.
Yeah, it kind of makes the style itself unique compared to other anime. I mean, there's so much more that makes Wit's adaptation more original and just stand out from a lot of the other anime that's produced. Not to say that, this is peak or anything like that, but I think Wit really prided themselves in taking a manga and making it their own, like taking the story and the art style and just molding it to match what their team and / contractors were what they envisioned.
Yeah.
And I think the outlines are just like that. I mean, does Isayama have those thick outlines? I asked stupidly.
I mean, it's nothing I've ever really thought of. Like maybe he has occasionally, but I don't think it's ever been anything consistent that he's done.
Yeah. So it was definitely a choice that I don't know who, but the Wit made. And I think it adds something nice. And like you said, it does make them pop. And it makes them feel like it's a comic book or a manga in a way. You really feel the inspiration from that.
Yeah.
Does it feel out of strange at times? I might see that argument. But I think for the most part, and especially once you get used to just the lines being there, I really don't think it's bad. I like you, I think it's charming in a way.
Yeah, totally. Something I don't think is as charming about the character designs, however, is the lip glance on a lot of the female characters in the season. I think it's a little silly, honestly.
Mikasa looks like she's a college girl hanging out with a bunch of middle schoolers. It's crazy. Like, this woman is supposed to be 14, 13, around there.
I think 15, for the majority of the season.
Oh, it's 15? My bad.
But still, that's...
Well, when they start their training, the training, she's definitely
She's
14, right?
12, I think, when they start their training.
Oh, she's 12.
Yeah.
She's 12, and she looks pretty much the same as she does when she's 15.
I know. Yeah, that's
There's some
actually
differences.
that is something I don't always think about. But yeah, the fact that they look the same at the start of their training, like the 3-year training, as they do at the end of it, and they're 12 at the start and 15 at the end of it, or at least Eren and Mikasa are.
So some
Yeah,
of the guys I feel like do change. Like I feel like Reiner changes from
maybe.
when they were in the training and then when they become cadets, but I could be wrong. But Mikasa definitely doesn't. Like she
Yeah,
looks,
it's just
aside
her
from the
hair.
haircut,
Yeah,
that's
right.
about it.
Yes, yes.
And I remember when I first watched the show, that never bothered me because didn't really understand their age. Sometimes things like that just go over my head until it's pointed out later.
Right.
I really thought they were maybe, in their late teens.
Right. Yeah. Dude, same. Definitely. Because my first time. Well. Yeah. I think for most people, their first time watching a show, you're obviously not as into it. Like you don't. You're not as invested in all the details and stuff as well. You and I have been doing an Attack on Titan podcast for almost 3 years at this point. We are
Right.
super fans. Well, I loved it because again, I'm calling back to our episode with You Hear Big Girls.
Mm-hmm.
Mom Taku referred to, or she used the word or the term super fan, I think. I thought that was such a funny word, and I think that's probably accurate for us
I think it's fair.
at this point in time. But yeah, back then, yeah, we weren't, and so we wouldn't really pay attention to all those details.
You got to have a podcast. You got to have at least one Attack on Titan figurine, and at least one, and maybe a poster. Anyway,
Yes.
no, because that's something I never noticed during my first thing. But it's now I watch it. It's like, yeah, this is a bit much. Like I know they're trying to make not just Mikasa, but a lot of the other girls just look beautiful and whatnot. But it's just too much. Like the lips and makeup or whatever they tried to do with them. Yeah, it was overboard, overdone in my opinion.
A bit much, yeah.
But that's not to say I don't like the rest of the art design and really, Mikasa. I'm gonna be honest. Like when I watched that first season, that was like one of the first times I had. This is really embarrassing. That I had like kind of a crush on an anime character, like when I was growing up, like maybe like Misty from Pokemon or something like that.
Uh-huh.
But this was like when I was basically an adult, and then
That's fair. That's okay.
watching an anime, and I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is amazing. Where is she? Where can I find such woman? This is going too far, going too deep. But so obviously I have a very great affinity for anime Mikasa, but in hindsight, I understand the the awkwardness of her design versus Eren and Armin and all the other guys.
Right. Yeah. But something else about the visuals that about the art specifically that I get, or I guess this goes into a little bit into the animation ish, but I think that this season especially does it, is when they sometimes they just cut to a still image of the characters.
Yeah.
Often when they're in action, not always, but it's often the time when they're in motion, kind of. But it's just a still image, and sometimes it's even like a short little montage of images. But yeah, so sometimes it's just a single image that's kind of displayed, and sometimes they're talking throughout it and stuff like that. I can see that as being, or I can understand if people would kind of not like that and accuse it of being lazy or whatever. But I personally actually really like that. I think in a way it adds character to the season, because it's something that I kind of, well, I see it as a relatively unique thing that this season does that I don't see in a lot of anime, at least in this exact kind of way. Plus, I think it gives you time to appreciate the art in a way that you probably wouldn't in the same way if it was just regularly animated.
Yeah. A few things about that. One, I think that they don't do that as much in the second half. Like, there's definitely some moments, but it was much more prevalent in the first half, I felt like.
That might be true.
I could be not accurate on that, but it felt, to my recollection, or not recollection, but just what I noticed is it was more so in the first half.
Mm.
And that could be because too they were trying to cut corners, and that sounds like a bad thing. But when your animation is fluid and really solid through most of it, but you're also on a tight deadline, you got to find ways to make it easier on your animation too. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you have a fairly well illustrated panel or image, but it's not moving, and so you can do other things with it. it
Mm.
and other anime does do that, but to a different extent. And I think the way Wit went about it was uh, creative and it fit the style and gave it a uniqueness in that way.
Totally. Plus, I think all of these images that we give, or that we're given in that kind of way, they're always really high quality. Like the artwork is
Yeah.
top notch, and I think with that, I can totally forgive them for doing that. Plus, as I said, I just kind of like it, like in general anyway.
hmm and my third point about that is, unfortunately, I do think there are some instances where it doesn't work. For example, in the flashback when Aaron goes to save Mikasa in the cabin, he kills the first guy, then
Hmm.
slowly shuts the door, and then when the second guy goes to see him, it goes to a still image of him chase or charging towards him with the broom and the knife at the
Hmm.
end, but
Okay.
it's just a still image. And that one, it it's so sudden and it's supposed to be so quick, and yet it's just a still image. It just feels off. Like that should have been one
Ah.
fluid motion, instead of just a picture. Yet,
Okay. Fair. Fair. I don't think that's something I've thought about, but yeah, I can see that. That is fair.
but if we're just saying like a crowd of people walking away, or they're riding off to the sunset or something, like there's moments where it definitely works very well.
Mm.
And for the most part, I think it works well. But there are a couple of instances like that one. For me, that was not the right choice. So I guess like
Hmm.
they had to cut, they had to cut corners somewhere. And I don't want to overwork people, but
Right.
I think
Right.
that would have been nice. Well, it's still a gruesome scene, but it would have been more interesting if it was animated.
True, true. I mean, yeah, I would not have complained, I guess, if they did actually animate that. Yeah, yeah.
The other alternative to having the still images, or not pressuring your animation team too much, is getting the 3D animators to work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't think Wit has outsourced to a great 3D animating team. Unfortunately, I mean, 3D animation has kind of plagued Japanese companies for a long time. It just really clashes hard with 2D animation,
A lot of time, yeah. Mm.
and there were a couple instances where, for example, when the Survey Corps, the recruits decide to stay as Survey Corps member, John, Connie, and them. Uh, everyone's walking behind them, and it's these 3D figures walking past them. As they leave, it's like, oh no, the attack of the horrible 3D
Okay.
CGI.
You know what? There is not a single part of this first season of Attack on Titan where I have any gripes with the 3D animation or the use of CGI.
No, no way. You
Honestly,
cannot.
it's true.
No,
It's true.
no,
I
really?
was not bothered by that part that you mentioned, and honestly, there isn't any other bit where I felt like
Not the
it.
horses, the CGI horses
No,
when they're running.
no,
Oh,
not the horses either. I honestly, the first season of Attack on Titan, I have zero CGI slash 3D animation
wow.
gripes at all.
Okay, fair enough. Now, to its credit, or whoever they got to do the backgrounds,
Mm,
uh, when they make them 3D, especially in those segments where you have 3D maneuvering gear,
yeah.
um, super fluid, the background is 3D, but it works really well. Like it doesn't, for the most part, it doesn't contradict what's happening, and it's not an eyesore. There were a couple backgrounds I felt like when they were in 3D that was a little off, but never bad. And yeah, for the most part, I think the backgrounds and the settings were done really, really well.
Yeah, yeah. The surroundings and the objects and stuff I think work really well as 3D. Uh,
Hmm.
like I for some reason, I guess mostly it's when it's something that should be alive that becomes 3D, and that, especially if it's in focus. But there wasn't anything like that in the season, so to me, didn't bother me at all.
There were a few. There were a few times, but whatever.
However, as you mentioned, I agree about the use of 3D animation for the ODM gear sequences and stuff like that is beautifully done,
Yeah.
and because they do, or at least from what I've from my understanding, they do add 2D animation on top of the character animations. Even though
Mm,
they're moving through a 3D space, there's what we see of the character is still a 2D animation. So I think
right. Right.
it's such a cool combination of those two techniques.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And in those cases, I guess we can agree that it's really well done in those.
Yeah. For sure. Hmm.
Nice. Something I really love is I think something that to me kind of marks this season is that in a lot of the high stakes events that they take place during sunset, like the fall of Shiganshina, as well as the latter part of the struggle for trust. And it gives off this light, like this kind of orange-ish light, to the surroundings and to the characters, that I think
Mm.
just really kind of it's like a signature sort of for the season, in my opinion. Or well, especially the first half of the season, or maybe that's the only part of it. But yeah, still, like it really makes it kind of stand apart, and it's really memorable visuals to me, just because it's all set in sunset. Uh, well, I guess the light in general throughout the season
Right.
is something that I think is really good. Another thing is the lighting that, or the kind of the light that comes through the trees when they're in the
Mm.
forest. I think makes it like it's something that I think they made look really beautiful.
There's just so much detail in a lot of the settings and backgrounds, and I think lighting and the shading, the shadows that are on their faces, but also in the background, really help with that as well. And they really did a phenomenal job and took their time in doing that.
Mm.
Not to like you, I'm going to bring a comparison, but you just compare it to, uh, well, maybe I won't even bring up the other seasons, but just other anime that maybe don't have the same production time or same team. They don't really take too much time to worry about all that lighting
Mm.
and shading. It's pretty simple, but doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not as detailed, and that's what makes this adaptation so incredible. Is it's really just like at times like watching a moving painting,
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah. Like I think especially like the details to the eyes in a lot of the shots
Yeah.
is
Oh
just
yeah.
such a it's just a
Whew.
it's eye candy to look at those eyes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. Absolutely.
My last little thing about the visuals, although this is not necessarily, I mean, it's something, it's a praise, but it's not like super high praise, I guess. But it's something that I
Mm.
just wanted to praise a little bit anyway. Is well, and quick little disclaimer: James and I have also watched the OVA called Ilse's Notebook, which is not technically part of the first season, but it was released, I think, shortly after, and it covers a chapter from the manga, which is within the part that they adapted this first season for. So I think it really fits into that whole thing. So I guess spoiler alert if you've only seen the first season and nothing else, but this really is well I consider it kind of to be part of the first season anyway. And well I guess I'm not going to go into too much detail right here anyway, so I guess it's fine. Anyway, my point is, and this is again just a small thing. When Ilse writes in her notebook, I think they were able to do those animations pretty well because that's kind of hit and miss a lot of the time. Like writing in animation uh,
Mm.
can sometimes look really fake
Yeah.
in some cases, but here I think it looks fine.
Yeah. That whole OVA, OAD, whatever it's called,
Hmm.
that that extra chapter is really well done and fascinating. Uh, I, it's just as good because I mean sometimes those extra chapters, like the quality kind of dips. I
Right.
I don't think it really dipped too much, if at all.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
agree. I agree.
and yeah, that I agree with you on that writing. It was really impressive how they went about doing that.
Mm.
I have a few more things about animation.
Mm.
The Wit's 2D Titans, I guess basically, well, the normal Titans, but also Aaron and Annie.
Mm.
Well, Aaron towards the beginning is maybe not as detailed sometimes as he is towards the end when he's fighting Annie. Like it's incredible
Oh
how
yeah.
much improvement and consistency you get towards the end of the season.
Mm.
Whereas in the middle of the season, in the Trost arc, there's a couple times where the animation does a little, well, animation slash
Character
art
design,
direction,
art
character
style.
design.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. It kind of takes a hit, and it may be because they had put so much time in others, and they have different people working on it and
Right.
whatnot. There's a lot of factors that go into it. It's hard to have the same consistency in a long running TV show like this, but
Mm.
I still think that Wit's 2D designs for the Titans are just phenomenal, and even, it's hard to top them, especially in this season. Like the
Yeah.
fight with Annie and Aaron is. I remember thinking in the manga, it's like, yeah, they're pretty good, but here in the anime, they're just so fluid and
Oh yeah.
really just fun to watch.
Especially like to me, honestly, I think I like their fight in the forest more than their fight
I
in
agree.
the city. I mean, they're both good,
Yeah,
but the forest fight especially is so
it's
good.
so amazing. Yeah. Oh,
Mm.
yeah. So kudos to Wit on excellent choreography. I mean, they
Yeah.
had Isayama's, I guess, manga to go off of, but they filled in the holes incredibly.
Yeah.
Um, and it was really detailed for how fluid it was as well.
Right. And the fact that it's all 2D here is also like
Yeah.
so much respect for that.
hmm There's one more thing. Let me see if I can. Actually, I think I said all three of those things in one
Ah,
breath. So I think we're pretty good.
cool, cool. Then let's talk about the audio stuff next. And I guess starting with the music, obviously, well, I think we can both agree like the music overall in this in this season is great. Linked Horizons openings,
Yeah.
well, the first one especially is fantastic. I really like the second one as well, even though it's not
hmm
as great, I suppose. But yeah, just amazing tracks. And the first ending, I think both of you,
Oh
both of us
gosh.
have a bit of a soft spot for.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, just such good openings and endings there. Plus, Sawano's score is it's just so iconic at this point.
It
Like,
is.
I realized like when I was rewatching this now that like I'm kind of humming along to all of the background tracks like during the
Yeah.
conversations and during the action pieces and stuff like that. I know all of them by heart, but I mean I don't know. It's just it's also good.
And and similar to how Wit has kind of a unique uh production value with this, like, Sawano's tracks really stand out from a lot of other anime tracks as well.
Mm,
Yeah, you have, you know, some shows that will have grand epic choirs and symphonies and whatnot, but Sawano is takes a lot of modern day techniques and then adds it with the orchestra and other instruments, and
right.
is really
Hmm.
experimental in some ways.
Yeah.
Um, throwing in different languages and whatnot. It's really incredible.
Yeah, he mixes like yeah, as you said, like he mixes like synthesizers with like acoustic instruments in ways
Yeah,
that I guess you wouldn't necessarily think would work, but he makes it work. It's just
yeah,
such a cool soundtrack.
great. And I'm not sure what his work. Obviously, anime and some of Japanese pop culture was fairly new to me when I was watching Attack on Titan for the first time. Uh, but I feel like he kind of established himself as a really credible and amazing music writer, and he
Mm,
went on to do a whole lot of other projects after that. That's for sure.
yeah.
Um, he, uh, if you've ever, um, have you ever heard of Xenoblade Chronicles X?
Well, I've heard of it, never played it though.
Yeah,
He does the music or did the music with that, right?
he does,
Mm,
and Yeah, when you first play, you're like, "Wow, this has some Attack on Titan vibes." Like,
Oh, oh,
because
really?
it's his sound, and I mean,
Nice.
he still makes it unique in some ways, but you could tell, okay, that's definitely Sawano, and I really respect artists who are able to find their own, well, voice. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
quite the same, but
Well, yeah,
their own style, and
totally.
Sawano absolutely nails it, and it gives Attack on Titan this first season so much life and character that even when I'm reading the manga, I kind of find myself humming some of the songs sometimes.
Dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 boom, 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 boom. Oh my god. I don't know why I started singing. It's just so, it sets the mood so well. Like, and
Right.
all of the different tunes and jingles and stings, like, ah,
It really does. It adds so much to the story. It gives emotion to the world and everything. I absolutely love it.
yeah.
And and speaking of Linked Horizon,
Uh-huh.
I feel like, again, comparing to other anime, sometimes the music in the openings and the actual OST clash a little bit. And yeah, that's not like the end of the world. Like, why should they be consistent? And I'm not to say that Sawano and Linked Horizon are the same, but I feel like there's a little more contingency in
Mm.
the songs that Linked Horizon created for the openings and what Sawano's soundtrack kind of goes for in a way.
Definitely, yeah. I think there's this, like, the instrumentation kind of matches in some cases where it's so it doesn't feel so jarring kind of when you move from the
Right.
from the opening into the episode.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of Linked Horizon, just as Sawano's soundtrack is iconic, their openings are just as iconic. Both of those,
Hmm.
the first one, second one, and maybe the first one, um, just because it was the first one, and it arguably may be better. It it really does make you think. Attack on Titan. It gets you hyped. It gets you
Oh yes.
really ready for the next episode, and it's just there's so much to love about it.
I mean, yeah, it is. I think. Well, to me, it's 100% hands down. Like, the main theme of Attack on Titan is the
Yeah.
first opening song. Because when you hear like da 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 da,
Right.
that is
Yeah.
Attack on Titan.
That's Attack on Titan. Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Like, nothing else is more Attack on Titan than that.
And argue like a close second is da 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 da. For
True.
Sawano's,
Yeah, yeah,
Vogel, I am King, whatever it is.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's true. That
Anyway,
that
sorry.
is that is a close second. Yeah, amazing music and voice stuff. There's also a lot of great stuff there. I think, honestly, I think the voice casting, or like the voice acting, all around is fantastic. In this, I don't really have anything that I have any, like, negative thoughts on at all. Some of my favorite performances throughout the series, or well, throughout the season, is, well, the first one is Yuki Kaji as well as Eren, as he's
Yeah.
trying to save his mom in the first episode, and also as he's
Yeah.
being carried away, shouting at her, like, well, or I guess the
Mm.
combination of his performance there as well as the actress that plays his mother, um, and the music, kind of like all of that combined makes that scene so freaking powerful. Um, although, though, I think my favorite part is Yuki Kaji's performance as Eren in that scene, like, especially
Yeah.
as he's being carried away and shouting at his mother in tears. Like, oh, it's so powerful, so good, like, such a powerful performance.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of amazing voice actors for this series. Like they really got a great cast going,
Mm.
um, and some of them, like Irwin, probably won't have anything until later on. But even his moment in this season, had he was able to stand out. Levi was able to stand out.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but obviously it's the uh, Aaron, Mikasa, Armin's voice actress. Like it just,
Hmm.
yeah, so many great performances.
Yeah.
One performance that I didn't appreciate. Uh, well, maybe it did when I first watched it, but it just kind of got forgotten.
Oh.
Is Sasha's voice actress like
Ah.
she? She's kind of not as prevalent in the later half, but in the first half, she's so funny, and
Yeah.
and not just because of the jokes that Isayama writes, but just her delivery in so many of the lines are just wild and chaotic. I absolutely love it. It's just
Yeah.
it's no wonder that so many people loved Sasha after watching the first season, because
Hmm.
she really kind of steals the show comedically.
She does, honestly, and like just small things, like for example, the part where I think this happens during the time when Armin, Eren, and Mikasa are being held at or they're being held at cannon point, during the time when Eren
Hmm.
is being doubted for being a human or Titan. During that time, when I think Jean is trying to cheer Daz up or something like that, and he points at Sasha and points like, yeah, she's
Yeah.
all collected, like she's all cool, but then she's like just hunches over and like screams, like that is such a good, but like just the way she does, like the voice, like in that is so good, like
Hmm.
it's funny, but it's also like, oh no, Sasha, like it's yeah, it captures all of that at once.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, she's great.
Just love it.
But you mentioned Armin's voice actress, Marina Inoue. My favorite performance by her is when during that part when they're being, as I said, held at cannon point, if
Yeah.
that is even a term, and you know Armin walks up like through the smoke, and and well, in order to defend Eren, that whole speech is so well performed there. It's
Absolutely.
also one of the highlights as far as like the voice work and the voice performances in the season.
Yeah, I think that's Armin's greatest voice performance. She has a lot of good moments, but
Mm.
that one in particular is just a standout. Then for Mikasa, I'd say there's a few for me, but I really think about her performance when she gets the merchant guy. I forget his name. The
Oh
merchant
yeah,
guy
right,
to
Reeves.
move his Reeves. Yeah, to move his cart so that people can escape.
Yeah.
Um, I you know it's a strong scene in the manga, but she really sells it and gives a lot of character to Mikasa in that scene.
Yeah.
And as I was watching, I just people who hate on Mikasa for being boring, or like being Aaron obsessed. Yes, she is very much in love with Aaron, but I think, or at least obsessed with Aaron. I guess in this one, she's very much uh not willing to confess any sort of feelings. Like she's
True.
just family.
Yeah.
Um, but there was a lot of moments where she was giving opinions or uh,
Mm.
not orders per se, but insight in at various times. It wasn't just uh, her saying the word Aaron.
Totally.
Uh,
Yeah, you're right. You're
I,
right. Mm.
I think it kind of became a meme that, oh, she says Aaron so much, but he's the main character. A lot of people say Aaron, a lot.
Yeah, you're
So
right. You're right.
anyway,
No, but I think she shines absolutely in the Trost arc. Like she is one, or I remember she was my favorite character after I had watched the first season. You know, by the end of the
yeah,
season, she was my favorite character in the show. And
yeah,
most of that I think came from her actions and her part in the Trost arc especially.
true.
But I
Hmm.
mean, she's still good in the female Titan arc as well. But the Trost arc especially, I think.
She has some really bad A moments in the female Titan arc, but yeah, it's definitely the Tross arc that makes you sympathize with her and
Mm.
really just get attached to her. Sorry, one more performance from her
Mm?
is one of my favorite scenes is when instead of accepting death, she decides to keep living so that she won't forget Aaron.
Yeah.
And I think she nailed that performance perfectly. Just
Mm.
great, kind of brings a tear to your eye, kind of a performance. It was great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my last voice performance I want to bring up, and this is by Jean's voice actor Kisho Taniyama, who actually, by the way, I read an interview with Isayama quite a while ago now. It's so I don't remember exactly where. I think it was in one of the like
Mm.
at the end of one of the books, like manga books. Um, but anyway, what I remember anyway from there is that this voice actor Kisho Taniyama was Isayama's favorite like anime voice actor.
Wow.
And so he was really happy that he was able to play Jean. And
Huh.
anyway, so I wanted to lift up one of his performances here, and it's the one where when they're standing around the fires after kind of burning the bodies that died in Trost, and he makes up his mind to join the Survey Corps.
Mm.
That I think, I mean, it is one of my favorite moments for Jean in general, but it's also so well performed by that voice actor in that moment. So like definitely one of my favorite performances from the season.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm.
He's great performance.
And to be fair, I do think the music adds a lot to, I guess, the feels in it. Although
Mm-hmm.
I think that can be said
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of the
A lot of
instances
them.
that we have
Yeah.
mentioned
Mm-hmm.
here.
I
The
agree.
music really adds a lot throughout.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I'll just another shout out to Aaron. Like,
Mm.
towards the even the female Titan arc, Aaron has a lot of moments where he has self reflection and he doubts himself, or he makes the wrong choice, and he has to learn from those instances, and it really takes a toll on him emotionally. But
Mm.
I think I always get his name wrong. Yuji Kaji, is that no?
Yuki Kaji.
Yuki Kaji.
Mm.
He always just nails the complex emotions of a 15-year-old boy
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
very, very well. And I think about that moment where he's kind of lifting himself out of the wood staff that's in his chest, or the beat or whatever,
uh,
and his scream. I mean, man, like,
mm.
are your vocal cords okay? Like, are they okay? Like, uh,
Yeah. Wow.
but
Yeah.
it's powerful.
It's great. So good. Yeah, the intensity there is fantastic.
Yeah.
My next thing, well, this is actually my, at least for my last thing on the audio stuff, and it's like a little bit of a combination of voice work and sound effects, is the Titan screams.
Oh yeah.
And I guess Titan sounds in general are great all around, but like I mean the Titan screams, especially the ones that we get from Aaron and Annie as well, I think sound so good here.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the main reason why I'm bringing this up is because I have also seen the English dub of Attack on Titan,
Oh,
and they are not nearly as good. The Titan screams are not nearly as good in the English dub.
what is it like?
It's well, I mean,
Rawr.
it's got
Yes.
the intensity is
Yeah.
there. The intensity is fine.
Okay.
As far as I recall, but like at least what I'm hearing in my head, right, from what I can recall, is Aaron's. Because obviously you hear him much more than Annie. Um, he sounds much more high pitched than he does in the Japanese, which just doesn't fit. It doesn't make as much sense, kind of, for it to come from that large body. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, but anyway, like the original Japanese voice work
Mm-hmm.
on this for the Titans and Aaron especially is just so good. Like the intensity is there, the sound of it sounds just right, and it's just how I would want a kind of creature like that to sound.
I feel like there's a couple instances where Aaron screams and you can hear a bit of Kaji's voice in it.
Mm, mm.
It's like melting into the deeper one. Um, but then as the series goes on, you hear that less, and it's more of the deep roar. But maybe the English dub just didn't get the memo, or just didn't see the differences.
I mean,
So
no,
they,
but it's different from the start there, if I recall. Like it's always just
mm,
more of a falsetto scream rather than a growl, kind of.
weird.
Uh, as far as I remember, at least.
Do you have any thoughts on sound design in general? I don't really have any, but it was kind of came to mind. It's like, oh, sound
That,
design.
yeah, that's the thing. I I've probably not never talked about it on Umami Manga, but something I know I talk about with people sometimes when it comes to sound design and like sound effects and stuff like that is that the work of a sound designer is one of the most ungrateful jobs a person can have,
Mm,
because if you do a great job, no one's going to notice anything, like
true.
because everything will fit so well into the places where
Mm.
they are, so you're not going to get any praise for it, so because people won't notice it. But if you do a bad job, oh, people are gonna get at you for that. And so the fact that I didn't really have much of like an opinion on it, I think probably means that they did a good job with it.
Yeah, I just off the top of my head, a couple of sound effects that I think are iconic are the the footsteps of the Titans pounding, I
Yes.
mean, especially when you have them running.
Mm.
That's really well done.
Oh yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah. Actually, sorry, real quick, the armor titan charging at Wall
mm,
Maria is
yeah,
like, from a sound design perspective, definitely great, but also just in general, because since we're already past the visuals discussion anyway.
sure.
It's just because they added kind of to that from the manga a little bit, like they made it just
Yeah.
more. They showed it a little more, and it's just such like one of my favorite things from those early episodes.
Well, and, speaking of sound design in that scene, like I'm pretty sure there was a moment where like the steam came off of it, like like it was
Yes.
almost like a train engine
Yeah. Oh,
kind of
that
a
is such a
thing.
cool addition to that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that too. Yeah, after he stops, he just kind of it comes out of his
but
mouth.
that's the thing. Just the steam from the Titans in general. That's a great sound effect.
Yeah.
The other one that it came to my head just now from thinking is the 3D moving gear, like the wires that you hear
Mm.
as it
Yeah.
goes. That's pretty iconic.
It's so iconic. Plus, I think it's such a cool kind of combination of sounds that makes it iconic.
Yeah.
It's not only the wires kind of ejecting, it's also the sound of this. You hear the sound of the steam coming from the
Mm-hmm.
device, and kind of, and sometimes you even hear like I guess the speed, like the wind kind of, if they're moving
Mm-hmm.
fast, like just all of that combined makes that iconic sound. It's such a cool little thing, I think.
Absolutely. Production value is so high. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, oh yeah, it totally is. I just thought of one sound design or sound effect, I guess, that I guess I've always kind of thought it was a little weird, and
Oh,
I'm gonna try to bring you back into the scene to kind of explain where
all
I
right.
am in my head now. But
Gotcha.
so after they had recently gotten back to the place where to restore their fuel in Trost, because
Yeah.
the resupply team hadn't done their job and stuff like that, but they just got in there.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after that, two titans, or especially, well, one titan's face just comes through the wall, but there's two of them. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. There's two titans
I think I know what seed you're talking about.
peeking
Mm-hmm.
through the wall, like, and the wall breaks through. You know, and after that, Aaron's titan punches those both of those titans with one punch, and they go flying
Right.
together.
Mm-hmm.
The sound that is before that, it sounds like a plane crashing. Like,
Oh, really?
and then the wall breaks through, and you see those titans peeking through. Like, I always thought that was such a weird design, like, sound design choice, because
Huh.
it wouldn't make that like, if I'm the only one who thought that, then that's just on me, I guess. But if anyone else has thought about it, I don't know. I don't know. Has anyone else thought about it? Have you ever thought about it?
I it doesn't. Unfortunately, the sound is not coming to mind. But do you think it's the music? Like it's the coming from the OST?
I don't think, from my recollection, I don't think so.
Okay.
I guess it's worth
I
worth
can't
looking up, but
remember what the sound
mm.
was.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
to me, it just sounds like what you would imagine the sound of a plane crashing, like, kind of like, uh,
That is silly.
it is. I think it is. But yeah, it's just that I will say that that's my only gripe about the sound design, though.
Yeah. And maybe like, if someone were to put, oh, what about this? About this? Yeah, I probably maybe agree. It's like, oh, yeah, maybe that's not great. But for the most part, I didn't have anything that I thought sounded bad. Like, I
Right.
think it was really well put together. Same with the voice acting and
Mm.
the music.
Totally. And as you said, like, I just want to also just lift that up a little bit briefly. Like, you mentioned Erwin and Levi obviously don't get too much to do in this season, even though, I mean, they have their fair amount, but obviously,
Yeah.
mild spoiler alert, yeah, they do get a little bit more in the coming seasons. Um, and as is true for several other characters, like, for example, Reiner and a couple others. And the fact that they cast, and they never changed out of any of these voice actors, as far as I'm aware, or at least, and
I don't
at
think
least
they
none
did.
of the major ones.
Hmm.
And the fact that they cast them for the first season and that they're still around, up until the much later in the story, and that they're still so good. They cast them so early for roles that weren't necessarily that big, but that they could still pull off these really big moments later on is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But is that it on the audio?
I think so.
Cool. Then let's talk about the changes to the anime. One of the major things that kind of affected the first half of the season was the restructuring that the anime did to the order of the scenes, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
How they made it all go in chronological order, whereas the manga goes a lot back and forth between the training arc and the Trost arc. Well, we have talked about it on our other episodes that I think both of us don't really like that change for the most part, or at least I don't.
Yeah, I think I'm still on that train.
Yeah, because the thing is, I can understand wanting to make these changes. I can see the logic in it.
Yeah.
And I can understand why some people would prefer it that way. But not only do I think it's an unnecessary change that they made in the anime here. I didn't really think it was a necessary change to begin with, but I kind of think it dumbs down the viewer a little bit. In some ways, it doesn't allow us to piece things together ourselves, sort of. But also, I guess probably the main thing that I like about the pacing or the structure, I suppose, of the manga is that the fact that it allows the story to get rolling much faster.
Yes.
In the manga, because Eren is eaten by the bearded titan at the end of the first volume. Meanwhile, in the anime, we have to wait until the end of the 5th episode to get to that part, and that is, yeah, quite a bit slower in that sense. And I feel like that's kind of when the story gets rolling for real, sort of. You get like your first piece of like actual action, once we're past the fall of Shikanshina. So it definitely takes a lot longer in the anime to just get off the ground, kind of.
I agree, and I understand where Wit's coming from, and not just to say, oh, we're gonna make it chronological, but Wit, I feel like whenever they take on a project, they want to make it their own. They want to make it, put their name on it in a way. I think we've seen this in a few of their series. Vinland Saga.
Yeah.
Recently, Rankings of Kings, and now with Spy Family, they tend to put in a lot of their own additions to it. They try to like stretch it out in a way.
Yeah. Right.
And obviously, Wit's first. Is it their first? At least their first big project was Attack on Titan, and I think you could see that this is where they started to put their namesake, their stamp on things. So I understand why they wanted to give more character, more time for things, and they wanted to fill in the 25 episode time slot. But I think because of that, the pacing does suffer, especially, and I'm surprised I'm saying this, especially in the first half.
Yeah.
I remember watching it for the first time and just being really captivated, honestly. And then I think I even thought that the second half was not as strong as the first. But after this rewatch, I like the second half more than the first half.
All right.
Like the female Titan art in the anime is better than the Trost arc, which I don't think so in the manga.
I see.
I think Trost arc is better.
Interesting.
But I thought it was the female part was better.
Nice.
And I think a lot of that has to do with pacing.
Yeah, right. It's not just the restructuring, it's also the fact that it is a slower pace compared to the manga.
Exactly. Sorry if I jumped the gun, but I think the restructuring of the order of events really affects the pacing as well, because by restructuring it and putting it in chronological order, they're able to take more time to shine the spotlight on more characters at a time. Because if they had done it Isayama's way, you go right into the action, but then you spend longer time in other parts, like the training arc, when you're supposed to be in the action. You know what I mean?
Right. Although to me, like reading the manga, that never felt like a detour to me. Like, when he went back in time for those instances, it always came naturally.
Right. It comes naturally, but because Wit wanted to add more, I think it would have become just kind of prolonged and okay, this is too much. Like, please take me back. Versus with Isayama, it worked because it wasn't too much at one time.
True. Right. Yeah. I think that's true. Yeah.
At least that's my guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But obviously I adored it when I first watched it, so I don't know what's changed. Maybe it's because I know what's happening and it's not so much that this is a mystery anymore. So maybe the details are too much for me now, but I still think I feel pretty confident that the pacing is better in the female Titan arc, and that I prefer how the manga goes about doing the flashbacks and not having it chronologically.
Right. And something else that, well, there is a lot of things that that the anime here does differently from the manga, but
Yeah.
one thing, well, the next thing I want to bring up is these bluish / purplish flowers that pop up here and there throughout the season are, to my knowledge, nowhere to be found in the manga. They're around the tree that Eren wakes up under at the beginning of the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
We can also see them in the area where when Eren blocks the cannon fire, as well as in there is one very much in your face in the brief flashback when Eren and Mikasa are watching the Survey Corps return, that happened right before they themselves return from their mission as on the Survey Corps. There's one there, as well as one in a vase in Eren's room, and when where he's resting at the very end after the battle with Annie. And maybe I missed some, maybe there were more, but those were the instances that I noticed on this watch through.
Did you? You probably did. You mentioned Armin noticing the flower.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah, when Eren blocked the cannon fire.
Yeah, you did. Okay, sorry. I must have spaced out when you said that.
Right, yeah, the fact that those flowers survived within the skeleton, but not outside.
Right, it's like, what? Why mention that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to signify that. Well, yeah. I mean, actually, yeah. Why? Because obviously Armin and Mikasa were fine.
Right.
So yeah. But yeah, it is a bit of an unnecessary addition. However, in the Ilse's notebook episode, there were no purple / blue flowers there, but there were the white flowers that have in the manga been a reoccurring staple, kind of. So they were, to my knowledge, there weren't any of those white flowers in the actual season one, like the actual season, like but in the OVA episode, we did have those white flowers, which would go on to become a commonly occurring thing in the manga later on.
Maybe the Wit did a similar thing they did with Mikasa's scarf in the manga. The Mikasa's scarf is black.
Right.
They changed it to red. Maybe these flowers were white, but they changed it to indigo or whatever.
Right. I mean,
but
I don't know.
I think they're kind of different flowers. I don't know.
Yeah. Although, plus in a lot of those cases, at least in the case where they're in Eren's skeleton, I don't think there are any flowers there in the manga at all. If I'm right. So they were definitely added to some degree, at least. But yeah, as you said, Mikasa's scarf changed from black to red, and Petra's hair changed from blonde to orange in the anime. And I guess in both of those cases, you could see the argument that they were changed to just stick out a little more, to be which is fair. I don't really have an issue with those changes.
Agreed. Yeah.
Another little visual change like that was the key to the basement has a different design. A bit, I would say, a little bit more of a flashy / fancy design in the anime compared to the manga.
Yeah, I don't know which is more realistic, but it makes it iconic. That's another word I keep using.
It's okay.
Iconic in the way that it stays in people's mind. I mean, for the longest time, after watching season 1, it's just, what is in that basement? Will we ever know?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Would almost drive one to read the manga, but not yet.
Almost. Yeah, I think you and I both started after season 2, so this season did not get us to read the manga.
as I mentioned earlier, Wit added a lot of scenes. Some scenes worked, some didn't, in my opinion. And maybe to someone who has never read the manga, it would have been, none the wiser. And it's not so much I think that they're not important. It's just sometimes I just think they're kind of boring or just not. Well, I guess yeah, maybe I am right. Maybe they weren't important. I
Hmm.
think the one that stands out for me the most is when they're taking the bodies back during the female Titan arc.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Um, that one, I see the appeal and him Levi giving the wings that he had taken off one of his. I think it was maybe in Petra. It could have been someone else, but the wings he'd taken off someone's jacket, and then he gave to uh, this nobody.
Yeah.
Uh, that whole scene, I guess I can see the appeal of it, but also it was just why why is
Mm.
this here?
Yeah, definitely. Like that scene is always like my go-to scene as far as like anime original scenes in the season goes. Like it's always the first one I think of when I think of the stuff that was added.
Yeah,
Because I think it's. I mean, I agree with you. It's not a necessary addition. It plus it takes up like at least half of an episode. It's like
yeah,
completely a time waster in my opinion. Meanwhile, in the manga, the trek back to Wall Rose was like 2 pages, and there was no drama. And I don't think we needed that drama. We didn't need to see that.
I agree. I feel like if you take out a lot of the unnecessary scenes that Wit added, you probably could chop off 2 or 3 episodes. Like
I'm
it's,
sure. Yeah, yeah, totally.
I mean, again, I loved when I saw it, so maybe it
Mm.
doesn't really matter that much. But this second playthrough, it was a struggle to get through the Trost arc because I knew what was happening, and I was like, get on with it. um,
That's fair.
Still, I think that they do a great job. Just let's give credit to Trost, Aaron picking up the boulder and putting it in the hole, just all the emotions that were involved in that.
Mm,
It's very satisfying when he fills it in,
yeah.
and in extent, it's not exactly well, the anime adds more to what the manga had. You know what I mean in that sense.
Right. Yeah. And I think in those cases it can definitely be fine. And I think in that
Yeah,
case it definitely was fine. Like they did a very good job
yeah.
with that.
Hmm.
Aaron's dream though that he has at in the first episode, that when he wakes up from the tree, is completely different from how it is in the manga.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, I'm not going to go into detail on anything else, but for anyone who doesn't know what that dream is in the manga, is he sees presumably Mikasa saying, uh, wait.
See you later.
Yes, see you later. What, I don't know why I got the brain fart right then. Yes, see you later, Aaron, is what she said. And then he wakes up from under the tree, and well, Mikasa is there, trying to wake him up. Meanwhile, in the anime, well, he kind of foresees his mother's death as well as a few
Hmm.
presumably upcoming events. And it's just, well, it's much vaguer. Well, I guess it's a different kind of vague. I guess, but yeah, it's just in my opinion, a totally unnecessary change, and I don't really see why they did it.
It's like they're trying to be artistic or
Yeah.
cryptic, It's like, ooh, yeah, what we could do? What it really speaks to the soul. What should we add? Ooh, let's get a B on the eye. Ooh, yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's creepy. Ooh, yeah. I mean, I respect strong choices, and this was a strong choice,
Hmm.
but I think the changing the dream like that is a bit of a shame.
It is. I agree. I definitely agree.
I mean, at least he was crying. Like,
Right.
at least that was the same.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, once he woke up, everything was pretty much the same. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was fine. But help me refresh my mind because I got a little bit unsure and I didn't bother to look it up in the manga. Pixis' introduction in the anime, that scene when he's playing chess against that nobleman, is that an anime original scene?
It's an added. It's
Right.
it's, it's not
I
original.
I figured it was. Yeah, yeah. Which, by the way, I really like that this edition. Like
I did
I
too.
think that's a really good introduction scene for Pixis, and you get a good idea of like what kind of a person he is through that. I really like that.
Agreed. Yeah. He just in the manga he just shows up out of nowhere to stop the Mr. Scary Eyes from Killing Aaron and Company.
Right.
But yeah, in the anime, you have that whole chess scene with the nobleman, and it, yeah, like you said, establishes character, and it kind of gives you a better understanding of the world. And to Wit's credit, they do a good job of giving more life to the life inside the walls and everything like that. Some things that we really didn't get in the manga.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. I guess something that's kind of on par with Aaron's dream that was changed, by the way, in my opinion, is the fact that in the anime, Mikasa's mother is, well, she passes on an embroidery pattern to Mikasa. Instead of, well, in the manga, it's a tattoo, like it's some symbol. We don't actually get to see it, but it's a tattoo on her wrist, and it's totally changed in the anime for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like I will never understand why they made that change.
Gosh. Oh, here's the embroidery that was passed down to the family. Oh, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, this is worthless. You know, and I mean, tattoo is debatable as well. But I think the thing is, maybe they did, and this is misogynistic, I feel. Maybe they didn't want to give her a tattoo, or well, maybe they didn't know what it was though. That could also be
right. Yeah.
And so maybe they figured, that's not very interesting or very pleasing to the eye. Let's change it to this, which is, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It maybe makes sense.
Yeah.
Beats me.
Oh well. It's a shame that they made that choice, but oh well.
Again, I respect strong choices, but I also respect admitting when you're wrong.
Yeah.
Any other differences or?
Yeah. Well, the climax of the season, I think there were a couple of changes they made. For one, there was Eren struggling for a really long time to accept that Annie was a female Titan, which is not. I mean, he does struggle with it in the manga, but not nearly as long. It's not nearly as dragged out. I mean,
it's like bruh.
He does not get knocked out like he does in the anime.
Oh my gosh!
Like,
gets
come
knocked
on.
out 3 times, maybe. It's great. He's like, he's about to. Okay, so you get to the point in the manga where he transforms into Titan and starts fighting Annie, which I think is very well done because he sees Mikasa, she says it's a cruel world, and she smiles at him. He's like, "You're right," and he transforms. Great.
Yeah, right.
But in the anime, he's basically about to do that, and then like the walls fall down on him.
Yeah,
and so he's trapped.
This entire.
And then he finally, well, he finally wakes up, and then he gets trapped again. Like the building falls even more on him. It's crazy. Like. It's clearly they were like, we have to fill these 25 episodes with something.
Yeah.
Let's milk this.
Right, and while he's knocked out like that, the Survey Corps are trying to fight the female Titan by doing the same thing they did in the forest by actually restraining her. However, this time, instead of staying restrained like she did in the forest, like she clearly could not move in the forest, and yet they did the same thing, maybe even more thoroughly here because they even had the net over her. However, she was just able to like break dance out of that shit.
Oh, we missed the legs. Oh, what? Oh, stupid me.
Like, yeah, and that entire edition, not just the fact that it's there, but also the way that it was executed is not something I respect too much.
Yeah. But everything else, I think, is pretty good. Like
right.
It does give us some good, as we mentioned, voice acting moments for Eren, like that him finally getting over that fact and pulling himself out of that wooden pole thing. Oh my gosh!
True.
Can you imagine the splinters? Like,
yeah, that is so disturbing.
Yeah, but yeah, it did give us that. But again, it really didn't need to be prolonged like that.
Yeah. Another change though during that climax was Eren's Titan catching fire, which was also not part of the manga.
You're right.
And like that whole part where he just goes berserk. I mean, I guess he goes a bit crazy in the manga too, but I think they kind of overplayed it a bit in the anime, which I think, I mean, it's fine. It's just
I liked it.
The aesthetic of him burning like that, and the fact that spoiler alert, he never did that again because it's an anime original
Well,
thing.
because it's anime original. Yeah.
Yeah. It is a little bit strange, I think. But I mean, it's not a big deal.
I agree that it's strange and not necessarily consistent, but I guess there's two things to consider. That Wit didn't think they were going to do another season or didn't have
Yeah.
intentions as far as we know.
Hmm.
So they wanted to end with a big bang. And yeah, I guess that's my other reason. Like, this is definitely kind of like that final gear, like my ultimate power level kind of a moment.
Yeah, you're right.
Where he overpowers Annie. And look, I still prefer the manga, but animation wise and spectacle wise, like, it's pretty cool. And like, I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, that's not consistent with the world. It should not be here. I think it
Yeah.
was pretty cool, but I do agree that, if they were trying to be consistent, then no, that should not have been there.
Right, right. But yeah, like it's a small gripe ultimately.
Yeah.
Then there's another little change, which I don't have an issue with, especially knowing the fact that they didn't presumably intend to make any more anime of this afterward, is the fact that in the manga, the reveal that the Titans are in the walls comes during that scene when they're fighting Annie, or I think pretty much at the same time when she's encasing herself in the crystal is when Mikasa, who's still hanging on the wall, sees the Titan face through the crumbled
Yeah.
wall. Meanwhile, obviously, here we get to see it kind of in the post-credit scene. But yeah, really just the difference I wanted to point out, if nothing else.
It's one of those differences that it works either way.
Yeah.
Because I like how you end with a little bit of hope and also like, oh, how is this all going to go down? And then it gives you this one last nugget of mind-blowing reveal.
Uh-huh.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And I'm so happy they gave us that. Like, even though it was
Right.
changed to the like a post-credit scene, but the fact that they still gave it to us, I think, was really good. And that I think season 2, I'm not going into it too much here, but the fact that they did that, well, it made it flow nicer into season 2, basically.
Yeah, and gave us something to be excited about for season 2 for those who aren't manga readers.
Definitely.
If you didn't have that, then I guess you wouldn't really know what to expect too much.
I mean, there is still the key to the basement, like that's still like a big
Oh, that's
thing.
true. Yeah.
Although the fact that there is at least one Titan in the wall is interesting in and of itself as well, for sure.
Yeah.
My very last thing though on changes is, and we touched on it, or I can't actually. Now that I think about it, I can't remember if we talked about this before we started recording or after. But Ilse's Notebook, that OVA episode, is, well, they added a lot of filler to it in order to make it a full episode, since it's really just a chapter, like it's not a particularly long chapter in the manga, but they really filled that out with content for the episode in the anime, and I don't mind that. I think they were able to pull that episode off really well. I think it's a solid OVA episode that honestly I wish it would have been part of this actual season.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it gave us a little more of Hanji and gave her a better, I guess, character, or at least gave her more character than she already had.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could agree with that, and I love what they did with the Titan placing Ilsa's body in the tree, with the beheaded head. Oh, it was disturbing, but also just kind of mystifying. Like, whoa, like,
yeah.
so what is going on? Like, why is the Titan acting this way?
Yeah.
I think if I had seen that, because this is the first time I had watched that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously I had read the chapter, but I'd never seen it animated. And if I had seen that when I first watched the series, I definitely would have been even more hyped and puzzled by what the Titans were and what was going on, and
right,
really would have got my mind racing.
Yeah, this season really did an amazing job at just leaving you with so many questions about the Titan in the wall, about the basement key, about, well, the whereabouts of Aaron's father, about well, if we're including Ilsa's Notebook, the fact that Titan spoke, like, what the hell. And Annie encasing herself in the crystal, what kind of secrets could she hold? Like, there's so much that the season left us hanging with.
To Isayama and Wit's credit. Like it was,
Oh, absolutely. Oh, for
kind of
sure.
both there. Yeah.
Definitely. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. So I suppose that's all for this month.
Yeah.
Very well. Then, if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga, and it would be lovely if you'd like to support us by either rating our show on the podcast platforms or subscribing to our channel Umami Manga on YouTube. If you like this episode, please share it with anyone you think might enjoy it too. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time when we'll talk about seasons 2 and 3. Bye bye.
See you later.
Dum 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 dum. Boom 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 boom.